Welcome to the InsurTech Connect Asia and Celent podcast. Thank you everyone for joining us. Today we'll be looking at the future of the insurance ecosystem and discussing topics ranging from product thinking to data analytics and AI. To help us on this journey, we've got some fantastic speakers for you who are going to introduce themselves right now. First off, we'll start with Max Tiong from Income. Great to have you here. Why don't you introduce yourself to the people listening? Tell us a little bit of what you do and what role you play at Income.
Oh, thanks for having me. I head up the transformation office in NTUC Income. Being a local leading composite insurer, we innovate across all product lines, and I'm also in charge of innovating the mindset within the company through educating and skill sets, kind of picking up new skill sets like design thinking, etc. And last of all, we look at creating new, potentially disruptive and definitely redefining insurance in a lot of ways, new business models that allow us to rethink how insurance and finance could be in the future. Yeah.
Great to have you here. Next, we have Tsukasa from the University of Tokyo.
Yes. Hi, my name is Tsukasa Makino. I'm glad to be here. I have been working for Tokyo Marine and Nichido Insurance for 37 years, mainly in the IT department and corporate planning department and Tokyo Marine Research Institute. And after retiring Tokyo Marine, I teach several universities, and now I'm teaching at Tokyo University of Tokyo. And also I'm playing a role as an advisor for several companies and organizations. And while I was working with Tokyo Marine, I traveled a lot around the world and met a lot of Celent staff and analysts. So I'm quite familiar with Celent. And here's some picture. You may see some familiar faces. And now I have a motorhome and I'm working from this motorhome and as well as traveling around the world. So now I'm home, but so it's great to be here. Thank you.
That's really interesting. That's nice. Thank you for the introduction. Now we have Max from Celent. Why don't you introduce yourself to us?
Thank you, Vivienne. Hello, I'm Max, based in Singapore from Celent. So Celent is a research advisory firm that focuses a lot on financial technology research. And in my domain, I look at the insurance technology landscape across the Asia-Pacific region, as well as a broad technology topic of data analytics and AI.
It's really wonderful to have you all here. I'm Vivienne, the executive producer of InsurTech Connect Asia. And without further ado, let's kick things off today. Today will be a little different, as you can see from Tsukasa's presentation slides. He has prepared a few visuals for us to aid in the discussion. So I'll let you know when to take a look at the screen if you're having this podcast in the background. So to set the stage, I would like to ask you guys to feel free to jump in and share your thoughts on the questions or answers if you have anything to add on. Firstly, I would like to start off by discussing about the product development process happening in the present. So this question is from Max. Income embarked on Hive, innovating itself from an insurer to providing insurance as a service. This enables any insurer and digital platform owners across the region to launch, localize, and scale innovation embedded insurance propositions. Can you share how the journey has been and what are the key takeaways?
Sure. I mean, when you say Max, I always have to refer and think which one you're talking about. It's the first time I've been in a session where we have the same name, but it's cool. So basically, I mean, the Hive initiative within Income initially started off more as a derivative concept, as a lot of insurers around the world, when they create a technology and a product that innovates the fundamentals of this. Of how insurance products can be distributed or priced dynamically and things like that. We tend to pride a lot in the technology that we've created behind it. So Hive was a very good derivative that we further cement the proprietariness of it. And when we started sharing through sharing sessions with all our partners around the region, because we are a leading composite insurer in Singapore, so we do not compete in a lot of other markets, where we do have companies that request that we share what we do, and they do the same part, and we appreciate that. And through that sharing, they start to express interest to adopt our methodology and also adopt our system. So Hive was born with that impetus to say, could this fulfill our friendly companies, the partners requests, and additionally put us at the forefront to explore how insurers can also develop secondary revenue streams. So in that pursuit, we have actually spoken to several companies in the Southeast Asia region, particularly, that express a lot of excitement in the way that an insurance company like us, a traditional insurance company like us, is able to rethink and utilize technology in a very fundamental way. And that interest actually allows us to sign very good MOUs with some of these partners, and we actually deployed some of these products that we've created in Singapore in those other markets already. About the market adoption does take a bit of time. I mean, we're not talking about digitalization. We're talking a redefinition and transformation. And I focus more on transformation. So if it's transformation, I guess we need to we kind of at the early onset to see whether people are even ready for this kind of transformation, because we're not talking about life insurance. In fact, we're creating products that insure against the rain. We're creating products that insure against flight prices. So this kind of products in the market that and like it's emerging, like Indonesia, Vietnam, they, while relevant, the public still needs to first have a mindset that I want insurance before they even consider I want this type of insurance, right? So insurance as a concept is still relatively new. So I think with Hive, we're able to work with partners to kind of throw in a little bit more lifestyle perspective when it comes to adopting new products. And it's been a pretty good journey so far. We're going to hope to kind of take a step further, so we do more than just innovative, disruptive, crazy products like insuring against the rain, and see some of the products that we have in Singapore, like Snack, where there's a lot of life-related products within it. Could such products actually find more of a stable and scalable footing in some of the other markets that we are kind of talking to? Yeah.
That's interesting that you brought up Snack. Can you go into more detail on like what went into consideration while building a product like Snack?
Yeah, sure. Actually, so Snack started off internally as a rather crazy brainchild of if we could remove certain first principles when it comes to insurances. I mean, technically we can't remove all of them, but from a concept standpoint, we could look at it very differently. Like traditionally, an agent or advisor will talk to you about so how much insurance do you need? What life stage are you at? How much can you afford? And then maybe you should buy a 10-year policy for now, and then maybe you're going to have a kid in the future, let's do something else, right? So that conversation, that first principle has never changed. We always believe that is critical. And today, I still believe it is. But I think there is a group of customers that are not ready for that conversation, not because they think it's not important. When we did our studies, we asked everyone, do they think insurance is important? And we all know that everyone's going to say, yeah, it is important. Then you start asking them, do you have it? And that's when you start realizing people say, no, I don't want it, I don't have it. And you say, why not? I have better things to do, I have better things to spend money on. And we've been young before, we know what they need. And obviously we would tell them that's a bad idea. But then at that point in time, they would not agree with that. So why go against the grain and try to convince them like how our grandparents convinced us not to do something and we just ignore them anyway? So then we decided to create a product or a structure of a product that aligns with their mindset, which is that could we create a product that doesn't have that conversation, like how much can you afford? We start policies from as low as 30 cents per policy. If you can afford 30 cents, it's just a round up. I mean, government just increased the Singapore tax by 1%. Everyone's paying way more than that now. So that means nothing. So I think it moves people's mindset a lot quicker and easier to just pay 30 cents to issue a policy. But what does that mean? We don't want you to issue a policy on a request as I want a policy, because that's the intention. And we know that this group of customers, they don't have that immediate intention yet. So could we then allow their lifestyle actions to then generate this kind of policies. Now, the concept of this is what we call micro stacking, but it's actually a very traditional existing concept. In the past, we do laddering of policies. So the laddering of policies tend to ladder 10 years, 5 years, 20 years. You get 10 years first, then when you have you get married and kid, you buy another 20-year policy to take care of that. You buy a house, you got more concerns, you buy another 5 or 15-year policy. The concept of laddering is something that a financial advisor is aware of. So you buy multiple policies, but you tend to buy them on a lifestyle milestones, and you tend to buy them over a very long period of time. But if I could ladder your policies on a micro level, at every single lifestyle transaction you do, you take a train, I give you a policy, you go to a restaurant and pay for food, you buy groceries, every single policy is being stacked. And you no longer start with the intention, do I need to protect that, or how long do I need the policy for? But be able to give the customer the feeling that they are building towards something. And as and when I do not need it anymore, because I'm starting to spend lesser, because I'm earning lesser, thus I'm spending lesser, thus you trigger lesser policies, naturally the insurances will come down, but it doesn't disappear. So the policies will go up and down dynamically based on the customer's lifestyle. We wanted something like that, and our partnership with Visa and MasterCard allows us to do that. So we have a very unique partnership with Visa and MasterCard, and EasyLink in Singapore, that allows us to take in, EasyLink is the largest network of public transportation. So we're able to take in pretty much individuals' decisions of where they're traveling. And with that, where they're, like what they're doing, if they are on the Visa and MasterCard, we know if it's F&B or buying groceries. We use this information to help us give more value back to customers. And on top of that, our partnership with Visa and MasterCard allows us to give what we call cashback in the form of insurance and investments back to the customer. So if we partner with a few merchant brands in Singapore, we have 100+ merchant brands. So those merchant brands, when you spend with those merchants, the merchants are going to pay insurance for you on top of what you're buying for yourself. So now we change the mindset of how people look at this as cost. Now this is benefit. And we want people to always look at insurance as benefit. It's just that when you have better things to do when you're younger, I can understand, because we all been there, right? We'd rather spend it on alcohol and have fun and things like that. So yeah, that was how it's all created. Yeah.
Okay, that's definitely really interesting. I really relate to that. I'd like to bring in Max from Celent. From your survey of insurance technology leaders, do you agree with what Max from Income has said? What do you think are like the key considerations today, and like how has they changed over the past 3 years?
I think when we set up the ask survey of tech leaders, we asked them, this year is going to be inflationary pressures and interest rate. Do you expect it to affect your budget? And I mean, almost half the respondents, they see a major influence on spending, and it signals to us a very cautionary approach for 2023. And so the other half see this as a minor influence. So it suggests that there's a continuation of the organization strategy despite the headwinds in the economy. And so we did expect the insurers to monitor the IT budget as per the organization business and the IT strategy, and then they have a greater watch over how they spend on their systems and so on. So on average, there was a projected increase of 5.5% from 2022 to 2023 for their overall IT budget. So when we ask this question about how do they manage it, this is what they told us. But then if you look back in the past 3 years, I think 2021, growth and retention and regulatory requirements are their priorities. But cost reduction has moved up in focus, and it's expected back then due to the uncertainty still surrounding the markets, because we were recovering from the pandemic at that point in time. And then in 2022, there was a better focus on growth and retention. So innovation has become a significant business goal along with cybersecurity, because they adopt digital practices and include data analytics AI into their workflows. And so there was an increased focus on process optimization and the delivery of a diverse product range to meet customers' needs, as well as Max has mentioned as well. So as new initiative introduced, there will be additional cost for investment, and this led to a lower priority for cost reduction measures. If you go to today at 2023, there's a slight change to what they mentioned to us. So growth and retention are still the priority, but cost reduction has moved up by about 20% this year, probably due to the increased uncertainty of the market, and which is not unexpected. And equally, process optimization and cybersecurity has significant influence over the IT plans this year. So the focus on meeting regulatory requirements has also increased about 17%. So it does signal we are moving back to a more cautionary approach towards innovation and product diversification. which has dipped about 12% in priority. So, but what's interestingly as well is that the ESG priority has also increased by 23% for 2023, and we see this going towards alignment towards the regulatory requirements where they might look for sustainable practices in the business environment. So new products will be out there, but I think they're more cautionary approach for this year. Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to Max from Income. The snack has also grown to include new products such as mental health coverage. How has the acceptance rate been for such products, and how is snack looking to scale up?
So we're constantly looking at what's top of mind for target audience that we are going after, right? So mental wellness and also basically mental wellness, physical wellness is something that I guess during the pandemic everyone started going and doing a lot more because they couldn't really do anything else, right? So they go to the gym and stuff. So people just build new habits. And with those new habits comes new concerns, right? Like we realize that people on our platform are buying a lot more personal accident products now, and they are getting more open to getting it. In the past, it was kind of a by the way thing, but we reckon that for this group of customers, they start thinking about the fact that I could sprain my ankle when I go to the gym and things like that, and it becomes very natural. And with that natural conversation, we realized that mental wellness was the next natural area to get into. But particularly because mental wellness and physical wellness does have very good intersection. So for now, we're still trying to get the adoption kind of set up right. To be very frank, the way that we have got the product up is not exactly the best model yet, because Snack today is in the third iteration, and we've been around for 3 years, which means that every year we're iterating the business model. And when we say iterate, we're not changing it. We're just looking at what's the best way to kind of navigate around something that's so fundamentally different, and also get our customers to actually look at the experience and say, this is the kind of experience I want to engage with an insurance company. So our priority is not just on product, our priority is also on engagement and also the experience of the individual and also the data that we can collect from our partners like you saw Mastercard to then give more value back to customers. So long story short would be, we constantly look at new products, and we're talking with our customers pretty actively, and we take their feedback immediately about what they like, the merchants like to go to, and slowly evolve the business model. Yeah.
I think besides gathering their feedback, what do you think the key enablers are for offering more customizable products and adding like further value to customers?
Definitely, I mean, we use the word customizability and flexibility in a very broad sense, especially people in innovation would like to say, so customizable, modular, they use words like that, right? But actually what does it mean to a customer? I mean, being both a user, a product owner, and also a customer myself, and we all have to look at and ask ourselves a very harsh question: is that sometimes do we really want to think about such things? And for Snack, we've already made it very easy to customize your journey and experience with a brand that you may not want to engage every day, or a type of an industry that you don't want to engage every day. We don't want to move that customizability down to the product, because we don't want the customers to worry about, like, is this enough? Is this not enough, right? So we did a lot of studies before, like, should certain products be inverted comma like modularized so that customers can pick and choose benefits within it that they want. But we reckon those people that actually talk about that are the people who actually are very well versed in insurance and are only talking about that because they actually want to save money. Which means that actually, even if I don't do modularizing it, I just need to lower the price, you're going to buy the cheapest product. I mean, maybe the claim experience matters to you. So we got to look at the conversation we have with customers and what is the impetus of it. So we have a very open conversation about it, but I do not reckon that in insurance that customizing a product is going to give a customer a lot of upside, but customizing the experience with the industry, experience with insurance, I think that's going to change it, because the insurance is not a one-off engagement, it's a continuous one, right? Even for travel insurance, the return rate for buying travel insurance products in most insurers are very high. So that's the reason why people are willing to throw incentives to acquire you at the first time as a customer, because we believe that the ongoing experience you buying from the insurance company is going to retain. Retention rate for travel insurance, motor insurance tend to be a little bit higher, right? Life insurance and things like that, they are all driven by the agency forces. So and it's good, but when we talk about digitalization, it tends to be in this sector. So customization, being flexible, is what I think the experiences of our apps need to continually move towards. But my advice would be when building innovation products is to still have that very honest conversation with customer, but also a very blunt conversation with yourself as a customer and yourself as an industry person. Is it meaningful in the long run to kind of dice and slice your insurance products, or is it meaningful to even launch a new product just because somebody else is talking about it, right? So NFT insurances, for example, meaningful in certain sectors, but is it meaningful in an app that is meant for the masses, right? So we got to ask those questions to ourselves. Yeah.
I think that's interesting. I think another factor to consider is definitely about data. So I think Max from Celent, what is your perspective towards the usage of data in the industry, and like what are considerations and opportunities to look out for?
I think today when I speak to the insurers and the vendors, so data analytics AI still dominates the conversation. For the insurer, they're looking at how can they adopt that better, and I think for the vendors is how can they create new products to sell to the insurers. But we are seeing a slight decrease in priority compared to 2022, as analytics AI is an area that insurers in APAC have consistently invested in, with enhancements for current initiative or even new projects beginning this year. So this could be due to the back-end components that's having more priority in 2022, whereby the legacy modernization topic or policy administration systems are still being invested in, and then replacement actually underway for the majority of the survey that we did with the respondents. And so I guess the key consideration whenever I talk on this topic is that data management should be a key focus before they select their models or even to select any appropriate use cases, and the consideration for regulatory requirements. So if you're collecting data, you should know what kind of data you can use and do not just collect for the sake of collecting, because there was a trend on like alternate data for let's say life and health insurance. And so the topic comes about how much should we collect and what should we collect. So it really boils down to collecting what you can use and not just going out there to solve any sort of thing just because it's trending. And to use data that can actually protect the consumer privacy, because that's something that we tend to may neglect, and then we will just want to mine the best model. But so it all goes back into the data management aspects of how can you model your data better and use that effectively for your use case subsequently. So the opportunities could also include a greater emphasis on data literacy in the organization, which will translate to value creation both internally and externally. So internally, you could talk about data on par with your workload as well, and then you can discuss things in a more objective manner and so on. Just an example. Or externally, you could create products. So I heard from Max saying that one of the values of creating a product was to collect the data as well with the partners. So that could be one value that you're creating. And so data initiatives that are targeted at specific areas of the value chain, like underwriting or even claims, with alignment to the regional organization strategy, business and data strategy, I guess there'll be a better foundation that will set for the next innovation that is to come for the insurer. Yeah.
That's definitely something to
So actually
Yeah, sorry.
I actually wanted to kind of add to that, right? So but I agree, like data is something which all organizations have to put on the forefront and something they need to first protect, collect, and in the last one, monetize / value, right? And I think that the last part is the one that most organizations are struggling with, like by collecting so much data, what is the value to the organization? And if the data actually comes from the consumer expects a lot in return for such information. And sometimes we look at data in the form of saying if you're collecting data from the customer, the value that they will hope to get back in return is to pay us lesser, right? To prove that they are safer and things like that. So they share more information in order to get that. Then you get the other flip side, which is you don't get information from some people, or they give you information that shows that they are on the other side. But how do you then reverse that logic onto those customers? And is it right to reverse those logic onto those customers? Then they wouldn't want to share the data with you. Then, I mean, if you're being in the insurance industry, we all know is that it is a pool. So if somebody is paying less, we got to balance out the pool, right? Because the remaining risk actually no longer holds this safer group of customers. So actually that net risk has gone up. But how do we balance that? So a lot of organizations feel, especially in insurance, we unlike in other industries where most other industries use data in a lot of engagement, and also in terms of better targeting, better marketing. But for us, data, even before this whole data thing that came about, insurance companies are built on top of data. That's what our actuaries do. That's their day job, right? They look at data, macro, some micro, but mainly macro, to come out with pricing. So then when we move into a space of like look at data and what we can do there, taking security and everything aside, I think most companies still struggle to find meaning on how to value it. And our income has created a pretty good data team that's starting on that journey. But I think where we are might be ahead of some of our peers in industry, but we are still also at that level to say how should in kind of insurance companies fairly, like what Max said, to collect those information, but also meaningfully give value back to customers. I think that last leg is whoever cracks that is going to really create a new wave of insurance.
Yeah, for sure. So that's definitely something important to consider. For Max from Celent, data analytics and AI is definitely an important consideration. So as we mentioned previously, so are there any trends that you observe?
I think the recent, asked them back to the survey as well. When we asked, so what's the dominant data AI technology is it preferred by the insurers? So a majority of 85% chose natural language processing or NLP, followed by image recognition and speech to text processing, which is about 60-ish percentage. My opinion is that could be due to the recent general awareness of language models like ChatGPT. So that leads to a new conversation with insurers where they ask as well, how can they think about this topic? Generally, I would say that the ChatGPT today has brought about a UI for you to interact with, but you have to consider it is a language model by itself, and it's not something that is, it's a progression of research that led to today's output. And so you have to consider in terms of why are you applying NLP for? But definitely NLP is something that they're looking at in terms of the data science space. And then the other part of it is anti-fraud systems. I think it's increasingly being adopted in life and health insurance for fraud, waste, and abuse scenarios, and even for pricing use cases with dynamic pricing, personalization, and so on, across both lines of businesses. And so we're also seeing APAC insurers looking at automating their data science pipeline. Even to today, the topic of ML ops to create a more robust development environment is still on trend. And then there's still the potential for more insurers to adopt such practices, to come up with a good pipeline and workflow to organize the data from data to product and so on. So, and then of course, external data utilization is still dependent on the insurer's data resource strategy. And as I mentioned earlier as well, you have to align those with regulatory requirements on data usage. So, but then as what was actually shared by Max Income as well, is that utilization is still not consistent. And so hopefully the industry will come to a certain point where we have a standard of how can we best use the data. Yeah.
With regards to collaboration across like domains and different like business units, what does the industry prefer in terms of like internal build and partnership with an external like solution provider?
I will provide the highest preference with regards to internal build and partnerships. And so 30% of the survey respondents, they prefer internal development for core systems function. But it is close to the choice of selecting the best of breed components from vendors, which is also at 35%, so it's quite similar. It could be due to efforts for legacy modernization and in complementing core systems with new services by vendors, but it's also due to the fact that some insurers prefer to build in-house solutions and some prefer to have the external core system vendors to service their policy administration and so on. And so for partnerships and external solution providers, 40% chose front-end solutions. So front-end solutions, how our label is part of the insurance distribution suite, and they are solutions that engage the business users in a UI for them to toggle and so on. But these systems do require domain knowledge. So development is usually with external partner or by vendors specializing in front or point of sale solution. And I think for best of breed component solution, 50% chose data analytics AI to, in a way to select from the vendors. And of course, data initiatives tend to be quite modular, and so it supplements the insurer's workflow improvements or product development. So, and then some insurers may not have the necessary team in place to invest in such products. So they might want to work with the vendors and or at least buy from the vendors certain portions that they offer. And then vendors, typically insurtechs with modeling capabilities, do provide the servicing usage for the insurers. So they help you to build the models. And so 55% in terms of emerging technology, they choose that to buy from the vendors, because it's similar to data initiative, because the insurers tend to look for vendors for support in implementing like emerging tech, or to even partner with external vendor to just develop the proof of concept to start off the project itself. Yeah.
Okay. I would like to bring in Tsukasa into the conversation. Yeah, I see that you've prepared some slides and visuals for us. So I
Yes.
think, yeah, for those tuning in, be sure to take a look at the video that's playing.
Okay. So maybe you are going to ask what kind of technology will impact insurance companies. And recently, generative AI, such as ChatGPT, is drawing attention. But I dare say that blockchain is the most powerful technology to change the world and the insurance industry. So it might sound to you, blockchain is a kind of not new one. It's been a while since it was introduced, but it will change the world drastically because it brings us decentralization by the technologies delivered from blockchain technologies. Let me explain. So as you know, blockchain is a technology which enables people to store, share data and value safely and securely without any central organization or central computer. So take a Bitcoin, for example. Bitcoin is built on the blockchain technology, and Bitcoin is not issued by the central bank. There's no Bitcoin bank or has no central administrator or no central computer system, and no one knows who invented this. But it works properly as a currency. So big banks are so scared because they afraid people won't need them no more. And same things may apply to insurance industry. As this word decentralized insurance, decentralized insurance. So banks and the insurance company are struggling how to survive these changes. So also NFT, non-fungible token, is quite interesting technology. And there's an interesting use case in Japan, but I have to skip this for a time restriction. And smart contract would impact the industry. It will bring a big impact because it automates all the execution of contracts. So insurance business or other business is all about contracts, a lot of contracts. So it could bring more efficiency to the industry to buy these smart contracts. But what I'm most interested in is DAO, the centralized autonomous organization. The flat, open, centralized organization, which is built on blockchain technologies. So it's quite opposite to the traditional public company like Tokyo Marine. So I'm very interested in this organization because it could change the world drastically.
Okay. How will these technology change the industry? Like, is there any like notable cases?
Yes. So in March 2022, an American insurance company named Lemonade founded DAO to provide climate insurance for African small farmers. So they are small and poor, so they can't afford traditional climate insurance, but Lemonade wanted to provide them with a very reasonable price, with insurance with very affordable price. So I think this is a typical use case of blockchain because it uses various technologies derived from blockchain, such as cryptocurrency, smart contract, and DAO. So yes, there's other use cases in a large insurance company like Tokyo Marine. In 2021, Tokyo Marine and Nichido Insurance Company, which I was working for, piloted blockchain and smart contract to streamline the overseas trade business processes. And also in 2019, the General Insurance Association of Japan tested blockchain to share and exchange insurance data within its 8 member companies. But those are all about automation. So of course, that will contribute greatly to the efficiency of insurance company operations, but I think it won't have as big impact as decentralization.
Thank you for that. I think now we are closing off the session, and I think I would like to ask one last question to all of you about like future implementations. So what actions should insurance company take to adapt to the forthcoming technology innovations? I think we can start with Tsukasa again.
Okay, I'd say, don't think yourself as the top of the value chain or center of the business world. You're going to be in a flat, decentralized, open and flexible world. The concept is often represented by the word Web3. It's a world that is the exact opposite to the world the big insurance company have been living in. So change your mindset, understand the new technology and the philosophies behind them, and most importantly, don't be afraid of the new technologies. Enjoy the change. Thank you.
How about Max Ang?
Okay. I think the market in APAC is one of complementary services over competition and I believe we should continue this trend of having like upcoming insurtechs or even the other FSI providers like payments and so on to provide the new services and technology to the insurers themselves, and to have the exchange of knowledge which will help to enable future implementations of new tech that aligns with the insurer's goal as well. And I think the other focus could be having everyone to have an upskill of technical skills, be it the domain knowledge of insurance or even the technical part of it of technology. And I think that will benefit the whole organization as a whole. Yeah.
Okay, that's definitely a good consideration. How about Max from Income? How can like insurers like Income prepare for technological innovations, and how do you think like this will shape the industry?
Part of my kind of portfolio is to really introduce technology introducing technology in industry layman terms to the larger organization, right? So definitely, I agree with Tsukasa when you mentioned like there's a bit of fear. There's a bit of fear, and the fear comes in many folds, not understanding it, and what it could actually mean to them, even if they understood it. So because of those two things, maybe people don't want to understand them. So I guess it's about us as an organization putting at the forefront that technologies are there to push individuals, doesn't matter where you are within the organization, further along the ability to create more value within the organization. So then that reduces that concern, right? So to actually pick up and actively want to find out what these new technologies can be used to in the day-to-day jobs. So I think definitely as an organization, we should start culturally we're not talking about technology because today we have blockchain and we have ChatGPT, but this organization has been here since the inception of Singapore and everything, with the first insurance company in Singapore, and we will continue to exist and give value to customers. So we should be ready as an organization culturally to the technologies to come a decade from now. And the only way for that to happen is the mindset towards risk, the mindset towards the unknown needs to shift. And I think a lot of organizations are trying to shift customers towards staff to customer centricity. And then this is the first step. Being more customer centric, you move the conversation away from how crazy the technology is and all that stuff. But can I find value? And the solution sometimes, and most of the time actually today, lies in applying new technology because it reduces cost, it reduces time in order to create same or even more value. So definitely culture needs to change. Technology will come along to fit that thing. I think working with regulators actively as an insurance company also puts us in the space to innovate together, because MAS has really been very upfront in sharing what they feel about technologies and giving organizations like us access to a pool of money if they want to innovate aggressively with them. So I think that there is a lot of systems in place. It's just whether or not the organization wants to take that first step towards it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that's the perfect note to conclude this podcast. Very hopeful. I'd like to thank all our guests for joining us, and we'll be looking at more topics like this at ITC Asia in Singapore, happening on the 30th May to 1st June. So I look forward to meeting all attendees. Thank you very much for joining.